Here we go.
Okay.
Excellent. Right. Good evening, residents of Litchfield, and welcome to the November 12, 2014 school board meeting. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Review and revisions of the agenda.
I think that we are good.
Summary of non-public actions from November 5th, 2014. Mr. Barker made a motion to approve the non-public minutes of October 29th, 2014 as written. Mr. York second. The motion carried 4-0-0. Presentations, recognitions. Existing on CHS.
We're expecting CHS.
Theater group.
She confirmed it.
Who am I looking for? Jill?
Jill DeLoe, yeah.
No one out there, no one in the auditorium.
Okay. Just back up with them. And then correspondence. And one, if I can find it here. Awesome.
I think there was one. What's it called?
Yeah. Lost, I don't know if I just deleted it or not.
John, I have an extra packet if you want.
No, it's my computer, I can't get it to boot up again.
There was one correspondence in reference to blizzard bags that, I can't remember what the content was, I read it a couple days ago. Just lost it.
Strongly in favor of something.
Right. Just bear with me for 1 second.
I got it.
There.
It's from.
Ah, there it is, I did delete it. Yeah, from Tyler Matthews. Yeah. Discussed, the group, meeting of the group discussed blizzard bags versus adding time to the days. Nothing seemed very appetizing to the board. I will not pretend to know what occurs during teacher development days, and why not shift when those occur. Isn't there always one or two in the fall time frame, which ends up taking a day away from teaching days? I realize everything is in balance, just a thought. I just thought was using the teacher workshop days, or not using them. I'm using.
Send that to me.
I will. Anyone have any other correspondence? Approval of draft minutes from 11/5/2014.
I wasn't here.
Okay. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Second.
Any conversation? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
3-0-1. Community forum? See no one here. We'll go to superintendent's comments.
wanted to recognize the fabulous job on Monday at both LMS and GMS of Veterans Day ceremony. At LMS, it was the Unified Arts team that organized the event. Robin Corbeil, Lisa Lasaki, Karen Martin, David Gilmore, Amy Berube, Carolyn Lake, Kathy Garabidian, and Christine Rooney. Wonderful job. The Grade 8 band was fabulous, very well received. Veterans and their families were very moved and touched and made a lot of very positive comments. Students were very engaged and well behaved, and it was a well-run event, as was GMS's event. And that was organized by Barbara LaBelle, Angela Lapointe, Daniel Moog, Heidi Miller, Peggy Sawicki, and Scott Turcott. PowerPoint song, animated at times, of the grades 1, 2, 3, and 4 classes. Tremendous turnout. Mr. Burke was there, and I think will attest, a tremendous turnout, even higher, I think, than the previous 2 years that I've been there. Double seating down the whole long side, and we had another couple of rows down in the corner. Very well received and very well done. And the ability of it, Mr. Thompson invited the students who had family from the forces who were there, invited them to go sit for part of it with them. And I have to say, it was so wonderful to see, you know, mothers and fathers or grandparents sitting, who were there to be honored, with their grandchild or child sitting either next to them or in their lap or on the floor in front of them. It was a very moving experience, very well done, and I want to congratulate the folks at GMS for that. It was a great event and extremely well received, and I think, you know, an even higher turnout than the 2 prior years that I've seen it. So congratulations to all. That's it.
School board comments? Committee reports? Did anyone meet, aside from budget?
We did not.
The only comments out of the budget committee meeting is they were looking for Dr. Cochran's overall summary of his vision for 2015, 2016. For the board, they'd like to see that before, possibly a little bit before they see budgets, so they can have a general idea as they're looking at the budgets as to what exactly direction the schools are going in. Along with that, they are looking to visit all 3 schools prior to going through budgets. And right now, tentatively, November 19th and November 20th are the 2 dates. I believe it's at 4 o'clock, Frank?
Yes, it is.
I know of one budget committee member who's responded already. That's all I've seen is one response that this person could make it. I guess
What's the reason for that?
that they want to see it. They want to have an idea. They did the same thing with the town side, is they visit town hall, the police department, the fire department, have a better picture of the scope of some of the things that they'd be voting on, so they have an idea. I'm sure going through, some of these folks have gone through the schools. It's been a few years. Some of them haven't. And I think seeing the condition of some of the schools and the possible long-range needs for upkeep might be a good opportunity for us to point out some areas that are going to be in need in a very short period of time. So, again, I'm not sure how many members of the budget committee are going to be there. They all want to. During the meeting, they mentioned it. And what I suggest also, if there's any school board members that would like to attend, it'd be a good opportunity for you to see these schools and see what the budget committee is going to be looking at also. I'll go into the enrollment report for October.
Up a little bit. Actually, retroactively, we had a small oversight. We'd originally had the September report at 496 at the high school, and it was actually 499. And we're up 1 from that at 500 currently. So this is a similar trend from prior years, the drop over the summer, and then we tend to get a small but steady increase, a trickle in of families during the school year. And interestingly, increasingly, I've heard comments about, schools as being a significant factor. So, rightly or wrongly, there's, perception that the schools are good and I think getting better, and I think that's accurate in both ways. We've always had good schools here, and I think we're doing a lot of the right work and getting somewhere. And hopefully, we'll not have as much of a decrease in student population over time, so we can stabilize our services. Other than that, pretty much what we expected.
Michelle, could you forward that, please, to the Budget Committee?
Sure.
Thank you. 2014-2015 snow plowing bids.
We did put out a direct solicitation for snow plowing. We last year, were under a one-year contract for the plowing of both three schools. We did a direct solicitation with 4 local providers of this service. In response to our solicitation, we received 1 bid. And that bid was from Dalton Farm here in Litchfield for $37,000. To give you some background, last year we spent $40,171, and the snow plowing line is not just for the snow plowing contract, but it's also, we purchase our salt and sand from the town of Litchfield. They provide us with that product. So the total contract in the salt and sand purchases last year was $40,171. Mr. Dalton did suggest in his bid, and this is the only bid that the district received, he did put in his bid that he would be willing to entertain a 3-year contract with the district at that same price for $37,000 each of the 3 years. And as you know, the district can enter in a multi-year contract. We would just have to put subject to funding in subsequent year 2 and 3. So again, it's the town manager and I did have a brief conversation because we did have a discussion last year about the town providing this service to the district. And I asked him if he wanted to entertain that again, and it really didn't go much further than election day hallway chat.
So in the case we only received 1 bid, do you rebid, or is that it?
We can. Again, this is not an unreasonable bid for 1 bid. We can go out in another solicitation. This is one of those contracts that if you had it last year, probably didn't bid again this year because of last year. And maybe you had it 2 years ago. I think we had a mild winter. You probably wanted to bid on subsequent because it is a fixed price. Last year, as you recall, was, for lack of a better meteorological term, nasty. And these are difficult services that are provided to the district. We're very demanding. We're the first one to admit, we're calling these folks in the specifications. It calls for once there's 4 inches of snow, they got to come over and they got to take care of these schools. And we have time commitments that they must meet in order for us to get the feedback as to the schools being available to be open for the school day. And I know the facilities custodial staff, they're out there at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning directing the people where to plow. And these aren't just streets where you can just take a straight shot. So a lot of all 4 of the direct solicitation vendors were local, because again, this would be one of those, it really needs to be someone local so that we have easy access to them and they to us as well, so.
There was talk about, and so I'm surprised that we have salt and sand in our budget, that all salt and sand was going to be moved to the town's budget, and they were just going to supply it to us, and they were going to purchase it, and that was pretty much a done deal back when you were on the board. I thought
We get billed.
was a done deal.
We get billed for it.
No, they were supposed to be adding it to their line item, and we were supposed to be removing it from our line item, so I would encourage another conversation with Jason about that, but since it all comes from the same spot, the idea was that they were just gonna order the salt and sand, and that was the process, because the money comes from the same person, the taxpayers, so.
Yeah, I don't know, I can just tell you we're billed. every
All right, well,
time we pull salt and sand.
I
from the
would,
town.
I would ask the question for the simple reason that if they're billing us, but they have it in their budget, then they're collecting on it, or part of it, twice.
I can ask.
Okay. I'll also follow up with Mr. Byron on that. Ask him about it, he'll follow up with the town.
I can ask him tomorrow if you'd like,
Ask him, if you would.
because we talked about salt and sand the other day.
Yeah.
All right.
I would need a recommendation, a motion from the board to accept this or reject it. My recommendation would be, I think it's a fair, based on our costs from last year, and if you look at previous costs, it's a fair offer, even though the difficult part of this is there's no comparison to what other offers come in. I will tell you, my experience with doing this now for 5 years is that most contractors will get a copy of the school district's budget and come in pretty, it's a matter of how close they want to come in to the budgeted line item for the snow plowing. So again, I think this isn't a contract that a lot of money can be made in a winter like we had last year.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for snow plowing submitted by Dalton.
You want it, you want all 3 years? Right?
That would be my recommendation for a 3-year. Again, it's a non-appropriation clause will be attached to the contract, so again, if the district were not to fully fund the $37,000, if the board decided that we think we can get a better deal than that, then that would null and void that multi-year contract.
I think it makes sense, because based on historical costs, that seems to be pretty darn close to what
Right.
we've been
It is.
charging, so.
Yep, you're
I
right.
think if we can lock that price in for 3 years, we should go ahead and do that.
Frank, are we sure that this company has the capacity to?
They met all the specifications of the
In
bid.
terms of the amount of machine and,
Mhm.
okay, great, thank you.
Further discussion?
Oh, we need to modify the
It's what I meant.
motion, okay.
Well, I assumed he said it was for 3 years.
It was
They
for
wanted to
3 years.
change
That would
it
be
for
my,
3
rec-
years.
my
I'm
recommendation
not
would be
kidding,
to
fine,
accept
it's
the
okay.
the bid for a
We
period of
should
3
be clear,
years.
though. We should have it in the,
Yes, I got it.
she's got
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
4-0-0. All right. On to old or unfinished business. Budgets. I'm gonna start with salaries and benefits. Superintendent's budget revised.
Get the, I didn't see over that printout, I don't have my computer up, the printout that you had for all the new positions.
So, I'm pretty sure I put it over.
Was it over there?
Tom has
Yeah,
one.
Tom has it in his hand.
It's black and white,
It
but
didn't come out real well.
Did you see my email?
Oh.
Just sent you.
Thank you,
when
sir.
did you send it? Is that
Oh,
the
you got it.
snapshot? Yeah, that's on there.
Oh,
That's there.
I think I know where it is, and it keeps coming up in valid connection.
It's okay. It's on their packet.
I have
Is it
one
under
right there.
salary benefits super, no?
It's further down, I had to add it at the bottom of
Oh,
all
okay.
the budgets.
Snapshot.
You'll see it. If you scroll, you'll see it. It's number 6.
Let me refresh, maybe.
I printed it right here if you want.
Yeah, I printed it. I'll take your word for it, 'cause I can't find it.
Are you gonna do it first?
I'm just gonna do,
Okay, that's fine. I wasn't sure when you were gonna do it. That's fine.
for the board, the snapshot that I provided to you last board meeting, you should have in your electronic packet, the snapshot, and I expanded it from last week. Mr. York had asked that I keep the operating budget that was presented last week separate from salaries and benefits, so we created a new snapshot for salaries and benefits. And just as kind of a prelude to what is going to be presented by Holly, we did run a comparative of the salaries and benefits for budget year current, 2015, and the budget that will be presented to you this evening. And the overview has, again, by location, the district-wide through and including SAU 27, The totals represent approximately, not approximately, $521,865 increase over current budget year, or 3.5%. And then again, we broke it down, and Holly will drill it down even further. We did a comparison on all the line items, the accounts for salaries, all the total salaries column, and you can see that the largest increase there is to the salary line, which for the most part is your teaching staff, your certified staff. There's a $153,974 increase of 1.8%. The health insurance, all your benefit comparisons to current budget, and again, you can see that health and dental are a substantial increase, along with teacher retirement, which again, Holly will give you more up-to-date information on that. Total again, increase for salaries and benefits is $521,865.
So, just real quick, Holly, on Frank's page 3.
Yep.
You have teacher retirement going up $132,836, or 13.1%. And on your report here, you have that our employee, the employee, which is us, I believe, our increase was 0.40% increase, but here we got a 13.1% increase.
It's actually the teacher retirement on that first sheet that you see. That went up 1.51%. And when you're looking at the sheet that Frank compared, this is just, it's budget to budget. So it's not the actual.
So is part of that 132,000 the teacher's contribution?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Because of increases.
Trying to figure out how that,
What are you thinking?
why is it costing us money? That would be coming out of their salary. It shouldn't be costing us money, it should be out of their salary.
No, this is
This
the
is
employer
employer contribution.
portion. Yeah.
This is not employee contribution, this is strictly employer expense.
I'll say, so on line 2 here, it says, the employer contribution rates for NHRS increase for teacher and employer group. The teacher went up 1.51%, and the employee, I think it should have been employer, I think is what you meant there, went up 0.4%, is that correct?
Yeah, there's two different groups under New Hampshire retirement, people that fall under the teacher group and employees that fall under the employee group. These are the employer contributions for both of those groups. The teacher group is 15.67.
So in total, it went up 1.9%.
Correct.
But here,
No.
it shows a 13.1% increase.
Yeah, but you're not comparing the same thing. You've got, this is the total employer contribution rate for those two different categories. But our costs, that cost, that budget that you see is increasing, isn't just the rate change. This has to do with folks that, we had 20, how many hires did we have this past summer?
You have more staff, your
Yeah,
salary
this
increases
is not just your
percentage-wise,
increase
blah,
for
blah, blah.
NHRS. You can't look at it that
Okay.
way.
So,
No, okay.
So in other words, this is for all,
Yeah, yeah,
we've
yeah.
had,
No,
we've had
no, no.
folks change salary increases, current employees may have degree enhancement, new employees coming in, so that, all of that is under the snapshot you see from me.
Yeah.
But the rate, the actual rate, the employer rate for our contribution, so that's a contributing factor to the I took my glasses off, sorry, 132,836. Part of that is attributable to the rate from NHRS going up.
so let's
Oh,
see if
no,
I
I-
have this right. The two
no.
categories, teacher and employee, the two categories of members within the New Hampshire retirement system. One is teachers and one are other employees
Professional
who are
staff,
in,
professional
professional
certified.
employees who are in this. So
Right.
one rate is going up 1.51% and the other is going up 0.4.
Correct.
So every employee who's covered in the system will go up by either the 1.51 or the 0.4.
Correct.
Oh, no, you explained it. It came through. I got it.
I did drill down a little bit more towards the LEA and the actual dollar amount based on current salaries right now from FY15 and then salaries for FY16 is an actual increase of $119,699 that we will have to contribute to New Hampshire retirement. Let me get you a copy of that, yeah. Okay, so I figured I would just go over an overview and we can kind of see if we have questions instead of going through 50 pages of salaries and benefits. The
Nothing else to
first,
do.
do you want to? I mean, we can stay all night. The first thing I wanted to mention was the guaranteed maximum rates for health insurance, dental insurance, long-term disability, and short-term disability. Right now, where we do our budget at this point in time, we don't actually have contracts for the next year for these companies. So we go out and we ask them for, you know, a guaranteed maximum rate. How high could our policies go up? The health insurance told us 7.5%, so that's what we based the budget on. I did actually speak to them today. Their actual rate is 6.9%, so we budgeted pretty close to where they are. Dental, we had an increase of 5% we put in the budget, and we have not heard from them yet as to what their increase is going to be. Long-term disability and short-term disability, we did an increase of 12%, and we have not heard from them at this point in time as far as what they were going to be.
Why do you think it's gonna be so much higher?
Well, I don't know, when we go, I went out and asked each of the companies what they would use, and these are the numbers that they gave me. I think they aim probably really high, so then if it comes close to that, we're not going back to them like,
It's a
hey,
big number.
why? I mean, because for the health insurance, I personally thought 7.5 was really high, and for them to come in today at 6.9, that's pretty close. Pretty high, I think. So New Hampshire Retirement, we talked about their, New Hampshire Retirement released new rates for employer contributions. So anybody under the teacher group for New Hampshire Retirement, our rate is going from 14.16% to 15.67%. Anybody that falls under the employee group for New Hampshire Retirement, our rate is going from 10.77 to 11.17. That is the contribution that we pay off of an employee's salary to their pension program. If we start on page 1, district-wide substitute salaries, we have, we removed the substitute salaries from the district-wide part of the budget so we could allocate it to each school. So it's gonna work more like we did with the textbooks where, you know, as the substitutes are worked at each school, they'll be charged to the school and to the subject area of the school. We thought that would be better. It's better use, we think, of, you know, the money having it charged to the school and being able to kind of keep track of where everything is going, see it there instead of one big bucket. We also did that for substitute nurses, and we have there's a bucket of money for tutoring for ill or suspended students, and that was at the district-wide level, so we also moved that money to each school so we can kind of keep track and see what's used there.
Did you use the same amount as last year's budget in total and allocate it out, or did you increase it?
We looked at FY14 actuals. Let me find, oh, so it was actually, let's see, for LMS, it's on page 6. It actually did not go up any money at all. 42,400. At GMS, let's see. I don't believe. I know we looked at,
Is this on
fiscal year
substitutes?
14 actuals, yeah, for
It wasn't
subs. I was
actuals.
trying to see if it ended up or not.
You don't have any substitute salaries under
Okay, here we
GMS,
go.
I don't think.
All right.
Oh, yeah, you do. $52,500. Page 3.
Okay, so they didn't-
16,000. Right?
16,000 for FY 14.
It's almost like on between the three of them, it's like almost 160 grand. You got two that are, let's see, you have 52,
Wellness is the same, went from 17 to
42 is 90.
Should be around 130 total.
It's, yeah, it's
So district-wide is
120
like
total.
$130,000.
37.5.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like 130 grand.
Yep.
You have less substitutes in the high school than in all the other schools?
Not much. All three
Well, your
schools are
52,
almost.
42, 37 is how you got it
Right,
allocated.
they have an actual.
Unfortunately, we have substitutes
You
that like
talking
to
all
go to
substitutes
the
or just talking daily?
Well, that's.
daily, those ones are daily.
I guess that would be
That,
daily.
that's your daily rate. Yeah, then you have another one for your long-term. Long-term subs combined for the district, I think, was around 55,000.
I guess it would be nice to know how much we spent the last couple of years in each one of those. I mean, are you guys comfortable with numbers? Because based on here, I mean, I sort of agree with Mary that it doesn't look like GMS spent that amount of money. In 2013, looks like they spent 16,000. In 2014, they spent 17,000, yet we've given them 52,000 for this year.
It may be an allocation issue on how they were allocating it out, because there was some that was expensed at the district-wide level. I mean, we can go back and look.
But I mean,
at
if you moved it to district-wide, wouldn't you have tried to move the other numbers correlate with that?
I can't tell you what they did. I really haven't looked at it past years. You mean last
Let
year?
me-
Or even last year?
Yeah, last year was district-wide,
So all the
Kept that
substitute
district.
dollars stayed district-wide.
right.
But if they had expenditures there, where did the expenditures come from?
Because we allocated it down to them. In other words, when we have a sub coming in for the day, the appropriation, the budget might be at district-wide,
Yeah,
but if a sub comes in, a teacher here, a CHS, it gets expensed against that line.
okay, but you only spent $17,000 on that line last year.
I don't know, I'd have to look at it, John.
Oh, I'm looking at it right here, it's gotta be accurate, because you gave it to the auditors.
Yeah, something came right, because then they showed CHS only spent 480. I'm sure they spent more than $480 on
So that's
substitute
what I'm
teachers.
trying to, I'm not saying that,
I thought I was asking a simple question. We put 120,000 in this year, did we spend, what did we spend last year? About that?
Approximately
What's that?
127, if that sounds
Look
familiar.
at that.
This feels like a textbook conversation.
Yes. 640 and 641 all over again.
Are they new?
All right. let's find out.
Are there few
Or are they
substitutes? Or are we
refurbished?
replacing a little bit, but we're replacing a few? All All right, move on.
I'll go back.
I'm gonna get you that
Find
answer.
What I was
out
trying to get at.
some more.
Keep going, I
Yes,
will, Mary, get you that answer.
I see that. I will find that out for you.
No, I'm
Frank
gonna
will.
get it. Keep going.
All right.
And if we did only spend the 16,000 and 17,000 and 480, we were in really good shape last year.
No, we actually overspent
Yeah.
our budget last
Well,
year.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I'm wondering why our numbers there don't seem right. Okay, next we have salaries for non-LEA members on a step schedule. We had decided at a previous board meeting that we were going to take the step schedules, update them, remove the bottom step and add a 12th step, kind of like what was done with the teacher contract. So we did that. This gave all employees a 3% increase while maintaining their current steps, so they didn't move any steps. With longevity, employees that had longevity, we kept the longevity for them, but did not give any new employee longevity for this year that would have earned it. So on,
So just to clarify on that,
yeah,
it's not that we approved 3% raise for every non-LEA
Correct.
employee. We approved a pocket of money that reflected 3% that the managers or management team would then be able to do reviews and give people monies that was appropriate based on their
Right.
performance.
Right.
Correct?
That's absolutely correct.
okay. We also took anybody under the LEA membership and moved them up according to their 2015-16 salary schedule in the contract. And they were also given longevity as needed. I did get some numbers as far as a breakdown of their salaries and benefits. In FY15, the total salaries and benefits for actuals were $9,374 and $9,374,517. For FY16, with the increasing employees a step based on the current schedule, we actually increased by $409,000. That's for salaries and benefits. Part of the benefit cost includes, the health, the dental, retirement, short-term disability, and long-term disability. That takes up about $226,000. Is just an increase in the benefits piece to that. District-wide sub-nurses, we did the same thing that we did with the sub-teachers. I will also look to see in each of those what their actuals were. Same thing with the tutors. Under district-wide building services, we reallocated 40% of our full-time district-wide building and ground staff members' salary, $16,286, from the CHS custodial line to district-wide building services. We took them, the employees district-wide, half building services, half ground, so we split his salary like the other employee that's in there. So we took it out of the CHS and moved it to just district-wide. Benefits and fixed charges, we have included a bucket of money for administrator raises in the amount of $31,730 to be allocated by the superintendent. Health insurance, we budgeted $5,000 for life changes that happen throughout the year. Dental insurance, we budgeted $3,000 for life changes that happen throughout the year. Unemployment is based off a calendar year. So for the 2015 calendar year, it represents a 15.4 reduction from the previous year. And then we added $2,000 for the first half of 2016. The last thing we have added into the budget is $30,000 for the Affordable Care Act responsibility payment. Beginning in 2015-2016, employers are subject to fines for the Affordable Care Act for any employee that is benefit eligible that does not take benefits through us and ends up going to the exchange and getting a subsidy towards their insurance. At this point in time, I know a little later on, we probably want to have more of a discussion about this, because there's different ways that the fine is calculated, and
Why would somebody go to that?
because
We don't offer health insurance to a position?
not to everyone. We offer health insurance to physicians starting at 35 hours, and effective January 1st, 2015, under the Affordable Care Act, a full-time employee is considered 30 hours.
You may recall, we had this exact conversation 2 years ago, and in the 13-14 budget, we had allocated 30,000. With the postponement of the rules-making around PPACA, we chose not to put any money in for the 14-15 year. But based on where we are, and of course, we'll know an awful lot more in the next couple of months, we felt it was prudent to budget it. One of the issues is that we have a lot of paras who are 5.5 hour, 5 3/4 hour a day, which means that they're just under. But we also have a lot of moving parts with those paras. They are sometimes also coaches, they are sometimes also tutors, they are sometimes also, as IEPs become more broad-based, extending into before and after school activities, extended day activities, extended school year activities, as the expectations of support for identified students becomes larger. And in some cases, if you have a 5.5 hour para who is working with the student in an extracurricular activity after school, it makes no sense to switch to another para. So that would be a $2,000 fine across 15 employees, and we were pretty comfortable that that would, that would not represent all of those who might be eligible, depending on how things break, because literally, I would say not 2 weeks go by without us having to reallocate para times. I mean, Ms. Messenger, you would be more on top of this than I, but since I'm the one who signs off on those changes, is that a reasonably accurate statement?
Yeah, paras get reallocated often, and we have a lot of paras that are right at 30 hours a week right now. And at this point, we don't offer benefits to them.
So technically, the offer could be, so the key here is we have an employee that's working with a student, and that para gets to 30 hours on Thursday. They're not coming into work on Friday? Is that what's occurring?
No,
They're coming into work on Friday.
to work, yep.
So they were now working 35 hours, so now they become, or they come over 30 hours, so now they become eligible for, by the law, they become eligible because of where our staffing is, they become eligible for healthcare benefits. Since we don't provide the healthcare benefits, they can go to the exchange to get those benefits. Is that my,
They can, yes.
Just if I may, they're not necessarily triggered that one-time occurrence over 30.
No, I
It's a
understand.
look-back period,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I
far more
understand.
complex, and.
I understand, it's gonna
Yeah.
look back over a year or
It's gonna,
Correct.
that's right,
whatever.
yep.
But in a reflection of that, our ability to accurately track said hours is somewhat flawed. So I think we would be on the wrong side of that argument today, maybe not in the future,
Well, I
but
wouldn't say it's our ability to track, because we track every change on I mean, when I talk about not a week or 2 weeks go by without an adjustment, we'll have adjustments made to IEPs, or a student who involved in extracurriculars comes up. And so we can give you a report now on the number of 5.5 hour week pairs, number of 5.75s, The problem is, 3 weeks from now, 7 of those may have changed.
Oh, I-
So,
no, I-
position control is there.
No, I understand,
But,
well,
but control of the hours and the alignment of those extended hours to whom, because we have to do it based on what's educationally best for the child, means we don't have that as much control as we might want. But it's the right thing to do educationally.
And it's not just paras, this would be any employee of the school district,
True.
including substitutes.
We have some 27 half-hour admin assistants,
Correct.
at least one that I know of, so.
We just want to be
So we're
safe to
going to
budget
be-
something.
so we're going to be at that number. And, you know, or, you know, to manage our staff the way we're trying to manage it is probably very time-consuming on a management level of trying to keep people at certain hours.
I don't think that you're saying we're going to necessarily be there. It's the person's choice if they go to the exchange. So
Correct.
I think what I heard you say is we tried to figure out a good, prudent risk number. That here's a potential for what could be, not too high, not too low, but reasonability.
Right. It's only, the fee,
People do what they do.
right, the fine's only if they go to the exchange and get the subsidy.
I mean, in some ways, the worst-case scenario is Congress and the Senate don't fund certain portions of the law, in which case it becomes $30,000 that wasn't needed. But we did an estimate of the number of people who we believe might be eligible, and then chose what we thought was a prudent subset of those who might go to the exchange and result in a $2,000 fine. So the number that we came up as a reasonably safe estimate was 15 people at $2,000.
There's, not to belabor this, but there's no way for us to know who will be eligible when they go to the exchange, whether or not they'd be receiving subsidy, because it's based on family income. Another piece here is, as well to note, is that 30-hour paras, based on our analysis, will not be eligible for the exchange because of the look-back period of 1 year and the way that it's calculated. Probably the biggest issue here is that the final rules and regs are not out on this. However, it is, this piece that we're looking at is scheduled for implementation in January of 2015. So we do need to put some money in there, as we said, to be prudent. But again, until we get the final regs, and we still have our accounting software company still working on ways to track this. As crazy as one might think this is, even coaches may be eligible for this, and trying to track substitute teachers, coaches, and, you know, how do you put number of hours to a coaching position? I mean, we were at a national conference recently, and it's a nationwide issue for schools and how they're going to address this. The software company, the accounting firm, is just now kind of putting a real effort into the software piece of it. So from the financial risk analysis, there's no way of knowing. I mean, you're really just throwing something at this and hoping that if it does occur, that it's going to be 15 employees, max.
That was the high-level overview of the salary and benefits budget. I don't know if we want to
You want
talk
to,
about that some anymore, if we have any questions, or you want to move on to new position requests?
And are these new position requests in the budget?
No,
So this is another additional $604,000?
this is separate, yes.
That's the new position request would be the shaded.
no, how about that?
That's right.
We need to approve this.
Well, before we approve that, why don't we discuss adding another
Well-
$604,000 to it?
Well, it's not in here, so,
Well, it could be in there, though.
right.
We actually took this new position request. These are all the positions that were requested by administration and departments in the district, and separated out as to Dr. Cochran put superintendent's position priorities, special ed stuff that was required by IEPs, and then the additional position requests at the bottom. The special ed ones that are required by IEPs, I'm pretty sure we need to go with those. The GMS paras, we had Devin give us information regarding what was coming for IEPs, what she knew of. These are 7 paras at 5.5 hours a day. That salary and benefits cost includes FICA, Medicare, taxes. One of the paras that she has in an IDA grant, we wanted to transfer that from the grant to the general fund with increasing salaries for teachers and what she has in the grant. We don't want to lose that position, and for IEPs, we pretty much need that. The CHS is looking for a part-time reading specialist per their IEP. Brian, they don't currently have one, right?
That was taken out of the budget when CHS was identified as a priority school, and by not funding that position for a year, it meant that they avoided that designation in the end. Last year, we had English teachers doing reading, writing workshops. This year, we have services being provided on a contract basis.
Yes.
However, we'll have more need next year, and this will be a better way to provide those services. So the IEPs do indicate reading instruction from a certified reading teacher.
The top portion we have here is superintendent position priorities. Dr. Cochran, do you want me to talk to those, or do you want?
Well, why don't I, since they were my selections. You can see down below, the original list was pretty substantial. You know, we have a lot of things that we'd like to do. Quite honestly, our budget per student is somewhere around $2,000 per student below the state average, which for a community, I mean, it's a very diverse community. If you look at household income, we do very well by state averages, but yet we're underfunded by about $2,000 a student times 1,500 students. If you do the math on that, it's about $3 million. About right? So
Maybe
we-
$300,000. You're right, it might be.
No, 3 million.
Yeah.
Remember, 1.5 million was taken out of the budget several years ago. We're doing the very best that we can do with the funds that we have, and we try to, you know, carve out small pockets of money to try and make programmatic improvements. And I think we've been successful at that, but we also have to recognize that the bar continues to be raised in terms of educating all students to high levels, including students with special needs, and also trying to make sure that we do a better job of providing opportunities for our brightest students, those who are seeking to go to selective or highly selective institutions. Under No Child Left Behind, there was a tendency to focus on the students who were less than proficient. And I think we're like most districts in that while we did that, we lost track to some extent to that top 5%. And so that's one of the budget priorities that we have is to try and find some ways to improve the educational experience for that very bright group who also deserve the opportunity to achieve their potential as much as everybody else. So if you look at the first position, it's one of primarily remediation math tutor at GMS. They currently have a Title I funded math tutor, but quite honestly, that means the services can only be given to students who are Title I eligible, and we have other students who need those services. And so this would allow us to go down to a level of comfort in terms of being able to address all the students that we feel could benefit substantially. We have decreased the amount of summer days for librarians at all 3 schools. A request came back from Mr. Thompson to add 5 days back to the librarian contract. She teaches as a unified arts teacher the same workload as every other teacher in the building. And so the annual work that she has to do really cannot be done during the regular school day because she's teaching, and she's doing lesson preparation. And while she does not, I believe, put grades in a report card, she has all of the other responsibilities of a full-time teacher. And so they literally have to close the library for 2 weeks at the end of the year for her to get all of her other work done. And she's already working, you know, a full load. So that, to me, is $1,545.35 is to save 2 weeks of the year of having the library open. The STEM enrichment, GMS and LMS. We do have a computer lab down at GMS now, and we have a half-time teacher, so we have additional programming opportunities both during school time and after school time. I know Mr. Barker has spoken before of some computer science programs designed specifically for elementary age students. We have the opportunity for science or math enrichment programs, by and large computer driven. And so this is money to allow the elementary school to be able to talk both to the PTO and to teachers about what are some of the things that we can do to help give that you know, top 3, 4, 5% of students, or perhaps even a bigger group, the sorts of science, technology, engineering, and math opportunities that will, number one, help them academically, but at the same point in time, expose them more to STEM opportunities. The second one, the LMS tutor position enrichment and math programming. I'm going to hand around a draft document that Mr. Lechleiter, Assistant Principal Thayer, Principal Thompson, Assistant Principal Farrow, and Dr. Heon and I have worked on to look at what Mr. Lechleiter has, I think, has come up with a nice title, and that is the LMS Distinguished and Accelerated Math Proposal. This really is intended to address, as I say, the top, 3, 4, 5% of students who will need to be in multiple AP math classes to be competitive at advanced institutions. Currently, we have the double grade 7 math block. So of the 5 classes at grade 7 this year, Mr. Lechleiter, 3 classes are taking the full grade 7 curriculum in the first period of the day and their second math block. So they lost a second reading this year. So they have language arts, and their 5th period is math. So 3 of the 5 classes have grade 7 math all year, but they have a 45-minute block in the afternoon to continue to work and backfill math concepts and ideas and skills that they've not mastered and need to master to move forward and be successful in high school. The other class is the other 2 classes are the groups that has usually gone in to take Algebra 1 in grade 8. The problem with the curriculum sequence is that group used to take grade 5 math, grade 6 math, grade 7 math, not take grade 8 math because they're in Algebra 1, which means they're missing a sequence of activity there. So that group takes double math. They take grade 7 math the first half of the year, grade 8 math in the second half of the year. And it is a demanding schedule. It's the same amount of instructional minutes, but it's compressed for time. So this is a group who would then, have both 7 and 8 math before they come back to a single math a day in grade 8 and take Algebra 1. Now, if you read further down, that's the proposal for this year. We have occasionally had some students whose parents would contact VLAX, and in grade 8 they would take Algebra 1 and also take geometry through VLAX. Not supported by the school, not initiated by the school, just parents who have students who are very bright and who have parents who are great advocates for the kids and are able to offer this opportunity. Now, we felt that we needed to do something that was more organized and more supported by the district, even if it didn't cost very much money, to try and make sure that it didn't come down to who your parents were as to whether or not you'd be able to take advantage of this opportunity. So for this year, we'll be identifying using NWA results, teacher recommendations, some parents that will contact and indicate to them that they can approach VLAX about taking that class. The plan would be to next year to actually proactively manage that group and provide assistance for them. So they would sign up, they would be taking Algebra 1 in the day with our teacher, and then they would also register probably about this time of year to take VLAX geometry concurrently. And they would have till the middle of the next summer. They can sign up, we can facilitate with them to make sure all the students would be in the same class. And this would be a stipend to either support math enrichment or any other type of after-school enrichment. But it would be enough that we could have, for example, a math tutor there 3 or 4 days a week for any students who need assistance within this program, or potentially for remedial work as well. So those are the two stipends at $4,200. If you read further down, one of the things we'd like to do is extend that approach down the grades. As you're probably aware, we've had some parents concerned that we're not leveling and at math at elementary level, and I'm really not a great believer in it, and there's just not a whole lot of research that shows that that leveling is a benefit by and large, other than to a very small and select population. So what we're trying to do is address that small and select population. So the proposal would be by the end of this school year, 14-15 year, we would identify roughly 3 to 5% of students entering grade 5 who would take grade 5 math, and then also would have the option of taking grade 6 VLAX math. Again, could be supported after school, finish it in time, and then they would move on in grade 6, and as the chart down below shows, they would, rather than going to the grade 6 math class, they've already completed grade 6 math, they would go to grade 7 and take the 7-8 acceleration block. That would allow this small group to take, in regular time, Algebra 1 at grade 7, and then VLAX geometry in regular school time supported with us for a small amount of money in grade 8. That would put them on track to take Algebra 2 as a freshman, pre-calculus as a sophomore, and AP Calculus as a junior. And last year, we actually had 3 students who finished AP Calculus as juniors the prior year and took AP Calculus BC as seniors. And the year before that, we had 1, Zach Wagner. So that need is there, and without their support, we've had a small but significant number of students, and we'd like to grow that number a little bit and allow the schools to support those students in that way. So that's those 2 positions. 6 block. One of the requests from the high school was to...
Wait, I'm sorry. Can I just ask a couple of questions on this? Because I
Oh,
saw it
sure.
earlier. The geometry, would it be honors geometry?
Yes.
In 8th grade? It would, all right. And would they be eligible, I know you just said Algebra 2, would they be eligible for honors Algebra 2? Would. And would both classes, algebra and geometry, be high school credits?
Yes. One of the issues that we have is sometimes students who are selected, I mean, if we're talking about the students who should be in this acceleration program, they should be on a certain math trajectory, and they have a bad year, it doesn't pan out for them, and if somebody pulls off a C-, then if they move up the next grade level at the honors level, or often they'll go with a bad grade and drop out of the honors track. I think we need to do a proactive job of working with those students and having them retake a class at the honors level rather than move up a course but down a level in the class. We sometimes leave that a little bit too much to parents without letting them know what a significant difference that can make. So there are 1 or 2 issues. Either the student was misidentified, or something happened in their life that allowed them to not achieve at the level that they should have. And I think, to me, it's more important that they maintain that honor trajectory, even if they don't get to that extra math class. So the option would be there. One of the disadvantages of granting credit is that if they have the credit, they can go on and take the next course, and it might not be what's best for them. So, but yes, they should. I'm not sure right now. I think right now we give them the Algebra 1 credit and it shows up as a pass, but does not count towards their GPA. Schools do that different ways. If it truly is the same level course taught to the same competencies with the grade, you can make the argument that it should count towards your high school GPA. But that's a board decision for another day. Any other questions about the distinguished and accelerated math proposal? Sixth block class, the request from Principal Rothaus to go from part-time to full-time teacher down below. The 51,863 is the difference between our generic anticipated cost master's step 7, I think it is, with the 2-person healthcare. If you look at it up above, the estimated cost for a new position at the teacher level is 76,230.94 all in, including all help and benefit costs. So the difference between that and the existing salary is the number that's shown there. If we don't fund that, then we'll need to offer 2 more half credits in physical education to keep up with demand. We did that last year with Ms. Zaipan, who taught an extra half credit each parts of the year. At this point in time, when we looked at the requests for physical education this year, we fulfilled virtually all of them. Although we do have one very large class. Class is well above 30. So there is some need there, but every class that was significant, that had a significant enrollment, I think there's one class that had 7 that didn't get to run. And I believe Mr. Patterson, instead of teaching 2 half credits, is teaching 3 half credits. So we're struggling to offer and fulfill all of the requests for physical education. This would allow us to maintain what we have this year, if not increase a little bit, without going with the full cost of increasing to a second full-time PE teacher. Guidance, administrative assistant, if we move over to the new student information system, there's going to be a ton of work for that person to do and for Director Callanan to do, and so I added that 5 requests in. I think it's more than reasonable.
So why don't we hire a company to come in and handle? Why do we have to hire a person? Why can't we hire a company
To do what?
to handle this IT position? Why do we need to hire a person?
Well,
I mean, if you hire a company, I mean, I imagine that 25 or 30,000 of that is benefits, so, I mean, granted, a company's gonna have benefits, but they're not gonna have those types of benefits.
I don't know.
Why can't we outsource it?
Well, good question. I don't know of anybody who's done it successfully. The positions are difficult to fill as it is, and you're doing a lot of custom work, quite honestly. Without that position filled, the IT support, his primary role is going to be the new SIS system, but there will also be work in other areas, servers, supporting the one-to-one computing, but the main function will be the new SIS system. Right now, we had difficulty today at running report cards at GMS with Rediger. We didn't know if we were going to be able to take attendance at the high school the first 2 days of school.
Yeah, well, I understand that.
So-
We've heard that, and I don't mean to belabor that, but I got report cards emailed to me.
Mhm.
Did GMS didn't do that? GMS did hard copies?
Yes, I always have. I think CHS is the only one who emails.
LMS emailed
No.
all of them this year.
You guys know?
No, you actually got
Yeah,
three
we
different,
email.
you actually got three different versions. GMS sent paper, LMS sent an email,
Okay.
CHS, you had to go retrieve the grades.
Medline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got three different ways of getting grades.
I mean, I hear what you're saying about the position, Dr. Cochran, and, but I think this is an opportunity for us to reevaluate, the IT process, and, I don't believe you're gonna get that position through the budget committee. I mean, it's, you know,
Then.
you're not gonna get it through the budget
Then
committee, I can tell
we
you
don't do the
that,
SIS,
you know.
and we hope that we can hold it
And
together
you're-
until we have a
well,
catastrophic failure, and
well,
then
no, well, that-
we'll say we
that's
told you
not-
so.
I can tell you that.
That's not the answer. The
No, I-
answer is, put it in your operating budget and outsource it, because that's the answer to solve the problem. Because you're not, you know, there's no guarantee that in 2 or 3 years, this position is necessarily gonna be needed, but if it costs you $100,000 for 3 years, then you're done. And we didn't have to pay into the, I mean, you got a lot of positions here. You have $80,000 for an IT position, of which you have another $305,000 down here below that are not.
That's why it's below.
I understand that's why it's below, but you know, every position you have up here, there's pros and cons on this. And I understand the need for an IT position. But I'm gonna tell you that if you want that to be an IT position, that as painful as this is for me to say, it needs to either go to the voters or we need to outsource it. Because I don't believe it's a long-term position.
Yeah, I can't see it being anything but.
Well,
I mean, we're massively underfunded right now.
Well, the one that, I'll just step in for a minute, because I mean, sitting through the budget committee meetings, and I feel pretty much the way they do also, that when it comes to full-time positions, that should be something the voters take up. So a full-time position should go through a warrant article, similar to what we do with GMS and the computer lab and the teacher. Part-time positions, I can see the flexibility that, that's what it is, it's a part-time position. You need it now, you don't need it later, it's fine. Once you get a person in a full-time position, then you don't need them in a couple of years, like you said, John, down the road, you still have that person. That position's still there. And you're talking a lot of money as far as a full-time position, which, if it's needed, it's needed. But again, I think that's something that we should present to the voters.
I would agree with that, but I firmly believe that if we need to have wire pulled, there are companies and people that do that much more efficient than people that we have on staff that could do that. I mean, it's just a natural aspect on that. There are some aspects of the IT process that, yes, we have to have people, you know, here to keep our systems up and are running and things like that. But
First, I'd just like to make a comment, and that is, based on the last 2+ years, have I, as superintendent, did anything to lead you to believe that if a position wasn't needed, we would not reallocate that money to a better use?
no, I understand that.
Mr. York, is there anything that I have done as
No.
superintendent that lead you to believe that?
No.
Thank you.
But at the same time, the reality of what you have to go through the process, and is it worth is it worth going through the hour-long debate and just to have it removed at the budget committee?
Doesn't matter to me what the board wants to do, just realize, if the board feels that the best thing to do is take it out of the operational budget and make it a warrant article, then the board, you know, should make that decision. If you feel that politically it has to be done that way, then I think that's what we do, no question. But there are some serious implications if it doesn't get funded one way or the other. And I'm not really sure that outsourcing IT is a great way to go. I don't know of any working examples, and I don't even know who to ask about whether or not there are working examples in any school systems. So, you know, I mean, if there are other people that are doing this and.
And I would agree with you.
Yeah,
However, in the private sector, we outsource IT departments very successfully on a daily basis in systems that are much larger than the systems that are run in schools. And it doesn't seem to be a heartache for those in the business world. So, you know, I imagine well,
So, I will say, from the private sector, IT contractors aren't cheap.
no, I understand.
But they're expensive. I do think that, so I personally think we are understaffed in technology, and we've been for a long time, and I think it's an issue we have to get after. I do think that regardless if this was a technology position or some other one, I think we have basically set an expectation with the community that we would want new positions on warrant articles, which I think makes it incumbent on us to do a good job explaining why we need the position and try to get the board to support that. I mean, I support it. I think it should be there, but I think we should take it to a warrant article.
and
I think that's what
I'm,
we've tried to
and-
set as a practice with.
And I agree, I think the need for technology and support is there. And again, I don't know if it's better to outsource or if it's better to hire someone, but I think with a full-time position, yeah, it should be on a warrant article.
I'm fine with that. And if we can't sell it, I think the Budget Committee has been very supportive of technology and the move to improve our students' fluency with and access to technology. And I'm very comfortable going back with them this year and talking to them about this in the same way they did last year with the halftime position at GMS. The curriculum writing is stipends. We've asked, this is the first time in the district history that we're going to write unit-based curriculum, K through 12, and we have to write for state standards, K through 8 competencies. We're well on the way with that work, and what we've heard from the teachers is, if you want us to just do it to get it done, great. If you really want it to make a difference, we need to slow down and take more time and do it well. And the feedback from last Tuesday, Mr. Lecklider, I mean, overwhelmingly, people were, I think, pleased with the time and the support, but the one concern was, can we have the time to slow this down, do the units well, which would probably mean doing units 3 and 4 this year and 1, 2 next year, which would mean a lot of opportunity to work over the summer. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, having the late arrival time this year has been very helpful, so thank you for that. And then the, you know, the PD day like last week, we were able to get a lot done. But I think that vertical conversation that happened, we did some of that last week, elementary, middle, high school, you know, that type of work, I think is really critical in making sure everything is lined up and fluent through the district all the way up through elementary to high school. So I think that work is critical. And the days so far, the time has been really productive so far, so.
Quite honestly, everything in the additional, is there anything in the additional position requests that you wanted myself or Mr. Leckletter to speak to? Because I really felt that what was up in the top, what was highlighted, the, what is it, 161 in required for IEPs and 136 for a total of 298, 633. If we take out that, the IT position, that changes to 57, 363, 78, and 161, and the new total for the top half is 219, 127, 45. And it would be a part-time math tutor, stipends, 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 and added days.
On the phys ed position up top, it says if part-time, full-time, is that already a full-time position? You're just expanding?
Well, the request was for a full-time, the request from Principal Rothaus was to move the half-time phys ed teacher to full-time at a cost of $51,863. And we actually didn't have enough requests last year to fill that full-time position, based on the document that I distributed about 3 weeks ago. In
Right.
fact, to get it to about 75%, we would have had to have them teach a fax course. So based on that.
So if we were to fund that top one, would that change that person from part-time to full-time?
No.
Would you be looking for someone else just to fill in that 6 block?
This Zypan is full-time, and she would teach 6 periods instead of 5.
Right.
And so it would allow us to offer 2 extra half credits.
Okay.
I'm sitting in your seat, I don't think you're gonna be here.
I didn't think it was Mick either, but it got out earlier than I
It's
thought.
awfully lopsided, Jim, you know, you're by yourself, so I moved.
She felt crowded.
So,
Derek, if you'd like, there's a paper copy, I think, of this. It's the
Oh,
new
yeah, I saw that. That's
positions.
the one you wasn't, I think you emailed it today, right?
Yeah.
so on the bottom, are you going to move the part-time music teacher and the enrichment coordinator along with that IT position? Are you going to move those to 3 separate warrant articles?
Yes.
I wouldn't recommend it. I'd focus on the one position.
I would say it's a conversation for when we do warrant articles, but I agree, I wouldn't want for too many.
Is this for the
Pick what's
GMS
important.
enrichment
Well, what we
position?
talked about was taking this IT data analyst up here that Dr. Cochran recommends.
Yes, yes.
If it's a new position, we had debate, John suggested maybe we could outsource some of it. I'm suggesting that's easier said than done, and also it has its own different structure for cost. Regardless, I think we have a commitment to the community that if it's a new position, we should take it to a warrant article. So, no matter what we think, I think we should take it to a warrant article.
What, are you talking about the STEM one
This-
too?
No, no,
Okay.
just this one.
Just a full-time
Because it's
position.
just a full-time.
Okay.
That's where we just were, so I think John was asking what about some of the other new ones. I think we should really be clear about what we think is most important and bring it forward, not bring a laundry list of how do people, everything can't be done in one part.
I think that's what you have up
Well, I
top.
think the
is
music
what-
teacher is probably just as important, based on the fact that, you know, we have almost 100 students plus trying to take music in LMS. That it may make sense on that, so, but you're right, that can be an argument for another day.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying, I don't think we have to decide tonight, the warrant articles are right. But we do have to get to a budget.
So I guess pulling all of those and just recommending those ones, or is there any motions on the table? Are those in
No,
the
there's no motion.
salaries and the benefits now, or no?
No, we're not.
Okay.
One of the things that I think, once we're through this budget season, we have to sit down and look at is where we are in terms of the trajectory for enrollment. If we have 4 grade 3 classes next year, then 4 grade 4s the next year, then you'll have all of your UA people at the elementary school who will be teaching 4 periods instead of 5 a day. Each day they do a grade level. So how do we reallocate that? And I think, and Principal Leclerc and I have talked about this, you know, at that point in time, you could take a Barbara LaBelle, and she could be that addition to LMS. Keep a quality teacher in the district as a 100% teacher. You know, we need more phys ed capability up here at the high school. Well, Jesse Harlander would be would be able to come up and teach 2 half credits at that point in time. So how do we try to retrain the quality teachers, knowing where we're going with our enrollment? How do we take the savings where they exist, but also at times, as we discussed before, how do we take a portion of that saving and try and improve programs at the same time? So that's really where we are. I mean, there's lots of other good things I would like to do, But I agree with Ms. Brindle. I think this is a single, if I had to come down to one thing in this budget, it would be that position. If we want to get to one-to-one computing, if we want to get to communicating to our middle school and high school parents and students about where their grading is on a day-by-day basis, especially at the high school, it's not happening. There's a significant delay. We don't report competencies and how students are doing at competencies on a rolling level, so you can see as a parent or a student, you know, whether or not you're passing your competency. You know, it has the ability to improve not just the communication there, but for special education students, you'll be able to move documents back and forth from teachers to students and back and forth in terms of grading electronically. One of the things that I strongly supported in the budget was Turnitin, and you can set it up so it'll go directly from Turnitin to the teacher that's involved. So it'll help improve the writing at the high school, you know. But everything hinges on the ability to communicate, to have students ready to work in an electronic environment at a high level before they hit college.
So I'll make a motion to approve the addition of the superintendent's recommended priority positions with the exception of the IT support.
I just sent you an updated list.
And the special ed required by IEPs, whatever those amounts are, you set them.
So which ones are the priority ones? The color-coded?
No.
No.
These plus the IP, and then those are the required by IP.
No.
I second your motion.
So the $161,000 from special education,
Just color-coded by location.
why wasn't that added into the sped budget? I thought Devin said that she added all of these positions into her budget, and we approved her budget.
There's two things. The sped budget is in two places. It's in the IDEA grant, and there's also in the special education budget. So when Director Bandursi talks about the special education budget, some of it is housed in the IDEA grant fund, which is a silo over here that isn't part of the general fund, and part of it is not. So while it's in her budget, it's moving from special education IDEA to special education fund 20. Mr. Markowitz?
21, yep.
So I
These are not included in her requested budget.
but but they're mandated, is that correct?
Yep.
So there's not an option.
There is a chance that with at least one of the students we have, that might only be 6 paras that we need, if the student shows significant growth. One of the things that I'm most pleased with is the number of students in special education who are getting decreased services because not only have they gone back to grade level, but they've gotten a year or more than a year's growth for a year's instruction. That's fabulous news.
That is great news, and I'm
That-
all for that.
That's where we are.
However,
Right now, those are new and needed to be added based on the IEPs that,
but when we had the discussion, then you asked us to approve Devin's budget. The discussion was that everything that you needed? The answer was yes.
within that budget, yeah. I didn't.
Okay.
If the question was, were there also some salary positions, then I didn't understand it. I apologize.
The process in this budget is broken because we are all over the place. When the budgets come to us from the directors and they're asked, is this your budget? Especially for special services budget. We shouldn't be, at this process, being said we needed another 7 or 8, 9 positions, because these 9 positions were known when Devin brought her budget to us. And when you asked us to vote on her budget, you asked us to vote on her budget because it was a done deal. Correct? You asked us,
For that budget, yes.
but we're adding 9 positions.
And the salary portion. This is the way we've always done it. If we want to change and do the first round of the budget with positions in with each of the other areas, we can do that. But we've not done it in the past, to my
Well,
knowledge.
with special services, special services, as budget has normally been, because there's not a lot of options in that budget. So we sort of want to know the impact of that budget across all the lines in that thing. And I was,
If the board wants to go back
it
and
was like a
reopen that budget,
$1.2 million
they have the right to.
budget that we voted on for her.
Devon's budget didn't have any salaries or benefits in it. It's separate.
The one that you voted on already didn't have any positions in it or salary benefits in it at all. That-
I think I think to your point, they usually do come with their priorities though. So we could have asked her about these positions, I guess, is probably what John's getting at.
But they wouldn't have been in
and
her
the point is well
budget anyway.
taken. It's only one.
No, they wouldn't have been in her budget. It comes
One
in
of
this
those
budget.
budgets is only one half of the bigger picture, and if the board wants the bigger picture, then we can certainly do that. I don't believe we've done it in prior years, and so we did it this way.
You're right.
Any other discussion?
Is there a reading specialist at CHS now?
I'm sorry?
Do we have a CHS reading specialist now? I think we've had one in the past, but was it
We-
grant funded or?
We cut it when we took their Title I funds away.
Is it there today though?
I'm sorry?
Is there someone there today in that role?
It's a contractor position for a small number of students, but that number will increase next year.
Do you know offhand what the dollar amount is for the contracted for that position?
I believe we pay that person $35 an hour.
Do you know what the projected amount is for the year?
I don't, but I can find out for you.
Just out of curiosity, do we know how many IEP or pairs we've added at GMS? Seems like every year we're adding 7 or 8 pairs to GMS.
Well,
We gotta get more pairs than
And we're
teachers. now.
dwindling.
You already have more paras, I think, than teachers.
it is. The good news is that we're adding paras at the elementary school. If you're adding paras at the middle school or at the high school, it means that students are falling further and further behind. So the fact that there's no requests at either of the other two schools means that we're doing at least some things, relatively well. But the number, I had not expected this large an increase, quite honestly.
Are these, I don't know if you can speak to it, but are these for students coming up out of like the preschool program, or are they newly identified, or
Both.
both?
And we had a discussion at an admin meeting about whether or not we have some misidentification going on. Are there some students, there are times that parents can be very insistent that their child needs a one-on-one, and they can literally wear down an IEP team if there's no one there to speak for the district and the budget. And so you give in and you give the parent a one-on-one. And when we spoke with Director Bandersky about it, she indicated that she did not see that as a significant issue. In other words, would it be more of a saving to fund the position to make sure we're not funding inappropriate one-on-ones? And she really felt that there was not a request here that was not legitimate. If you look at GMS and you look at the student population, the percentage of students who are entering school with disabilities and significant disabilities has increased significantly. I think teachers will tell you that. And if Director Bandersky had indicated that bringing someone else in a middle management level would be more than a cost saving in terms of not funding unneeded paras, then we would have had that discussion, but she did not, and in fact felt that there wasn't one of these positions that wasn't justified. Given what I've seen of her performance, I have a tremendous level of confidence in her judgment. But I do apologize if there was a misperception about this being all of the increases for special education. And we can rectify that for next time around.
Well, it's just another, you know, now we're back up to over $800,000 for budget for the year.
At the same point in time, we have been consistently underfunding education for a long time, and we've reached the point where we really can't do it anymore. If you look at what we're spending on textbooks, if we look at what we're not spending on textbooks, if we look at what we're not spending to maintain our buildings,
Yeah.
No, I'm,
you know.
And I think this is the year we can make that argument with the bond going away. We can say, okay, we've been neglecting our schools for this amount of time, the bond's gone, now we have a gap, and try and talk to it. I was curious, I went back and counted, there's 21 pairs at GMS now, and this will add, so there'll be 28 altogether. I guess could we, I mean, I'm gonna vote in favor because it's required, but I mean, just for going forward, when people ask us about this, without putting names next to pairs, could we get a breakdown of like how many students each pair is with?
I have, I'll type it up and send it to you
Okay.
right now. I asked Devin for a breakdown of paras, based off of each school, how many were one-on-one, how many were shared paras, and how many, were small group shared paras. At GMS, we have 11 one-on-one paras, 9 that end up being shared paras, and then they have 2 regular ed kindergarten paras.
Okay, so the 9 shared, you said 9 shared?
Yeah,
So those are they specific to a classroom then? Do they,
I believe they move around
okay,
to different classrooms with
At a
different
total of
students.
It's about 2 per
20
grade.
in grades 1 through 4,
Mhm.
which is
Well, preschool, right?
about 1 per, well, and
Yeah,
2 more for
preschool.
preschool. There's pretty much 1 per classroom. And if you've been in elementary room classrooms
it's about average, but we're adding
of late,
7 more now.
that's, 5% of the population.
when you
One
say
per-
shared, does that mean that 2 or more? Or does that just mean it's being shared with 2 students?
Being shared with 2 students.
Yeah, a lot of
2 or
times
more.
You see them in
2
a
or
class,
more.
usually helping multiple students that they kind of bounce back and forth.
They refer to them as program paras versus
Yeah.
student para. Student-specific para or program para, helping out with reading, math.
Tom, how many pairs do you guys have at LMS?
I want to say we have 16.
16?
16.
He is correct.
He's
We-
right.
he has
Good answer.
16.
Bonus
Nine.
point, someone slipped
He
in the
knew it was
answer.
coming.
He's
Look it up
good.
beforehand.
Can you please name them in reverse alphabetical order?
9 one-on-one, 6 shared small group, and we have 1 one-on-one to be filled.
I take it.
What I see at LMS is, particularly now that we have a special program for some of these kids that were being outplaced, I think that's another part of this, is that there are kids in district now that in the past we've outplaced and spent a lot of money on outplacements. So I'm seeing now some of these kids staying in district with para support. So that's another part of this.
A lot less money.
Whole lot less money.
Just in transportation.
We'll get that, right?
That right, Frank?
Yeah, that's correct. Absolutely correct.
Any more conversation? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. 500.
Hope all those budget lines aren't that heavy.
This is on to LMS superintendent budget.
Are you gonna vote on the salaries and events?
I'm sorry. That we just did. It's about the same
No, that was
size.
only new
I know, I'm just kidding.
positions.
Make a motion to move salaries and benefits of $15,327. $15,327,711.
At the second for discussion, are there any increases in here?
There you go.
Thank you.
And even some decreases.
Yeah. Not many, but. We'll highlight those.
Lines, that's right.
Now, we did point out at the admin meeting the other day that the tax rate increase from 2010 to 14 on a house assessed at $250,000 was $200, which is a $50 a year increase over the last 4 years. So I think we've really done our due diligence in trying to do more with less. And I have to say, I give all the credit to the folks in the school who have been pulling that off. But I think you'd have to argue that we've not been spending crazy. But at some point in time,
Yeah,
it
spend a
just
little.
takes funds to do some things.
So I see all the increases. I see salaries for non-LE members on a step schedule. But I don't see salaries for non-LEA not on a step schedule. Are there increases for that?
That was one lump sum amount of 31,000 for administrators.
Okay, but like, so pairs and tutors, there's no increases?
Pairs are on a step schedule.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And tutors, I apologize,
What
I should have
monitors?
put more information in there.
Okay.
There was 3% for monitors and tutors, they're not on a step schedule.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other conversation, questions?
I think the sole point to bringing LMS back was to vote on,
No, we gotta vote on this one first.
I'm sorry.
That's all right, I missed it too. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 500.
I abstain.
Yes, abstain.
I'm sorry.
Abstain.
Sorry, LMS budget was music, and the explanation of the
Instruments.
Lease.
The instruments.
Lease purchased by,
at 10,932, increase of 8633. Tom, did you want to speak to that? Carolyn's music budget?
I think we're pretty well set.
I think we
You guys
were,
all set?
I think
Okay.
so.
we had the teacher here last week.
The only person we haven't had is the person who's selling us the instruments.
That's true. They're coming next week.
They're gonna
Because
come
we
to-
have not beat
they're
that
gonna
one
come
up,
to-
you
They'll come
know?
to the budget meeting, right?
Serenade you.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to move LMS budget of $149,696.
Second.
Any further,
Would you second? For all three of us to
I'll take Mary, she's in there.
there you go. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500. Now brings us on to CHS.
This one came down a lot.
Frank, the
First thing I
new
checked
budget
today.
represents about $31,000 in cuts from the last board meeting.
It was $31,000 in specific cuts, and an additional $70,000 bottom line. The board had requested that we bring it down to approximately 105% of this year's approved budget for CHS. So I did not receive the additional cuts in time from school administration, so I did a bottom line, which would obviously will be replaced by the actual cuts when we receive that from Principal Rothaus.
So I'll make a motion to move the CHS budget of $493,570.
Second.
Sorry, how much, John?
$493,570.
We have a
From
second?
I say.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500. Buildings and grounds, superintendent.
Actually, that would be Mr. Markowitz.
I'll make a motion to move bottom line budget of $1,553,802.
Second.
Has it changed though?
I don't believe so.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500.
Make a motion to move the transportation budget of $606,056.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained, 500.
Just a quick update, Mr. Chair, for the board on both of those issues, regular transportation, vocational transportation. The board had requested that we take a look at reducing the number of buses that services the district. The first student does have a special software program that they just purchased there. They're gonna load all that information in, and they will get back to us momentarily. Also, the same issue on the vocational transportation, I've asked them to do two things: to look at this year's current need and see if we can reduce the projected cost there for this current fiscal year, as well as looking at next year, which part of it will obviously hinge on which area agreement that we'll be moving forward for the next school year. So those three pieces are in play. They're just not available for us to have any concrete numbers for you tonight. And if I may, one more thing. I had received a special email this afternoon from Director Lawrence that asked me to express an invitation to all of you as board members to participate in tomorrow's pre-Thanksgiving turkey dinner at all three locations. They are featuring roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, gravy, dinner rolls, sweet potatoes, casserole, peas, cranberry sauce, and dessert, apple pie or crisp. Vegetable, fruit, and dessert selections will vary at all schools, all made from scratch except the
Turkey.
I can tell you today, they wouldn't let me take a picture.
Turkey product.
They had roasted turkeys
They did.
that they were peeling the meat off. The only exception I had was they were mixing the breast meat with the legs and meat. So I figured I wasn't gonna go there. They were, but I did tell them that I would move that invitation along to the board.
That's not supposed to happen, the white
Board
meat.
has the handout.
Twine,
Is that just during-
legs.
They were ripping.
Is that just during the lunch, regular lunchtime?
Yes, regular lunchtime. And again, all three schools will be participating.
Derek, you gonna venture?
See, Derek, you could have a good meal
I
tomorrow.
have a meeting, I have an all-day meeting tomorrow, I can't make it.
And
But I'll
just-
send 3 delegates
We
and get
could-
feedback.
If you want, we can make up a plate and keep it warm for you.
That'd be fine,
Alright.
if you do that. If you do that, I'll eat it.
You'd be able to come get a thumbs up instead of a thumbs down.
Yeah, really.
They
I
did
might have
not
to take one
mention
for
you,
the team
Mr.
at
Barker,
GMS.
specifically, but, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Oh, lizard bags.
The deep sigh.
Can we
You
just-
have a handout
I
in
move
front
to
of
push
you
it off
that
to next
Dr.
week.
Cochran will speak of.
Second.
We have one for Derek.
Oh, Derek, I have one for you.
Or I can share.
Is it this one?
We have a first and a
Yes.
second.
GMS instructional, or sorry,
I
the
again, one.
Oh,
I had an extra one somewhere.
instructional time calculations. I was asked at last meeting, I provided the summary based on the reported times for the three schools, based on their submission to the input-based accountability system. I was requested to check that against the bell schedules, so that was much of today. I want to thank the three principals for getting the information in quickly. There's a schedule for grades 1, 2, 3, 4 on page 1. They're essentially the same schedules across the 4 days with things moved around. The instructional time summary is below. 8:25 to 11:55 is 210 minutes. And there's a caveat there. Elementary schools may count up to 30 minutes of recess per day as instructional time for pupils in kindergarten through grade 6, which is an interesting comment.
Lost my serve.
But we do have time that does count in that, and so the instructional time, including recess, is 210 minutes, and there's a specialist, and then there's a time left for the rest of the day. Subtracting 15 minutes for passing time, which is actually quite generous at the elementary school level, given a relatively small school and only one specialist a day and one for lunch. So that totals 335 minutes of reportable instructional time times 180 days is the 1,005 reported hours per year. They're required to have 945 hours, so they are, as was reported last week, actually significantly over. LMS is next. Wildcats and Owls, I believe, are 5 and 6, and they're 7th and 8th. 5 and 6 are in the same shape as GMS because they only require the lower 745 a year, or sorry, 945 hours a year. The grades 7 and 8 breaks down, actually they all break down the same way. So periods A through G are essentially 45-minute periods, and there's 7 of them each for 315 minutes a day. There's a 30-minute enrichment period, and if you look at the last block of the day, there's an additional 5 minutes thrown in. So you have the 7 times 45 is 315 minutes, an additional 30 minutes plus 5, and then subtract 15 minutes of passing time each day, which is a little aggressive, but not unrealistic, given that all of the grade 6s are in one wing, all of the grade 7s are in another wing, so 2 minutes to change classes in between classes is probably realistic. It's not like you're going from, one end of CHS to the other. I think they allow 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes for passing time, which again is fairly aggressive, but doable. So their calculation was correct at 1,005 hours per year. And the high school, with the move to the 8-period Monday, you've got more class changes, so a little bit more passing time. And so Monday's total was actually 358 minutes, 2 minutes shy of the 6 hours. The others all reported out at 360 minutes. So across a 5-day cycle, it was 2 minutes shy of 6 hours a day. That equates out to, instead of 1,080 hours per year, 1,078.8 hours per year. So we updated the spreadsheet from last day. GMS, 180 days, 335 minutes each day. Minutes per year, hours per year required with a 45-hour difference, and that difference minus the hours lost. 6 hours is for 2 hours times 3 late arrivals, and in the case of CHS, they do an early dismissal for senior projects. So since 3/4 of students are dismissed 2 hours early, I deducted 2 hours from that. So that gives remaining hours of 54, 9, and 80.8. So if there's 108 instructional days, then you've got over 9 days of additional hours met at GMS, and in grade 5, 6 of LMS as well. 7, 8 at LMS is 1.6 days, and CHS is 13.5 days.
So on snow days, you can cancel school for everybody with 7th and 8th graders.
Right. That's what you mentioned last week.
Well, if you go back to the clarification from the Department of Education that we gave you last week, which is a 3-page document with a wonderful little clarification from the Department of Education. 8306.18 school year. This change was made in 2011. As I mentioned last week, while they, on paper, changed the regulation, they didn't change the reporting requirements. So schools for the last couple of years were required to report both 180 days and the hours. So functionally, no schools that I know of made any real changes because they were told by somebody at a fairly low level in the Department of Education that they didn't meet the days. The topic of offering school calendars by hours is on the agenda for the South Central Superintendent's meeting a week from this Friday, and that conversation will be led by Superintendent Mark Conrad of Nashua, and I will be assisting him in that. This little 3-page summary covers pretty much everything that you need, but if you look on page 1, I don't think it's in this package, it was in the old one.
The thing from the district.
Is it there? Okay, yes, good. Thank you, Michelle. So, section 4, page 1, the school shall have in a school year an additional 60 hours in duration to provide for instructional time lost due to inclement weather or unexpected circumstances, staff development, and parent-teacher conferences. We do staff development and parent-teacher conferences as part of the additional 6 contracted days. So we have 180 instructional days. We have 1 day, this Friday, where parent-teachers occur as a school day. It's not built into the 180. We have 2 PD days, 1 in November, 1 in March. Those are not built into the 180. So at least 30 of the 60 additional staff hours should be available for rescheduling hours lost due to inclement weather. That's the interpretation of the minimum standards for public school approval. And if you look at it, GMS has 54 remaining hours of the 30 required. CHS has 80.8, and LMS has 9. So they are 21 hours shy of the mandatory 30 additional hours in their calendar. Now, when it comes to calendar, that's actually on page 2, middle of the page. It used to say every school shall maintain a school calendar of at least 180 days. Now it just says you have to have a calendar.
That's really helpful.
We have a calendar.
You have a
Jack?
calendar. Well, the problem was, under the old regulations, you could have all of this extra days, all this extra hours, but you were never allowed to count them because you had to have your 180 days, which made no sense. The problem we have now is that grades 7 and 8 are significantly below the hours that the other school has. Principal Lechleiter and I had a long conversation today about how one would go about trying to find additional time. If you go back to the previous handout and look at the schedule at LMS, you'll notice that there's a 15-minute homeroom period. There is also a 30-minute lunch period. The LEA contract under workday indicates, and I'm sure somebody's going to be watching this who's in the LEA, so I'll try to make sure that I'm quoting the correct area. In terms of workday, the normal workday for students pre-K through 8 shall be 7¼ hours. And down below that, if the board wishes to add to the length of the student day within the framework of the above noted workday, then it shall not be subject to the grievance clause of this agreement or subject to an unfair labor practice charge by the association. It is understood, however, that the impact of such change is negotiable. And it's negotiable what that statement means. Next paragraph, it is further understood that negotiations between the parties are required should the board desire to increase the length of the teacher workday, not the beginning and ending hours of the workday. So there are two issues, the 7¼ hours and the amount of instructional time. And my interpretation is that to some extent those are independent. And it would be subject of negotiations if we were to try and extend that 7¼ hours. But I believe that it may not require negotiations or an agreement. And I'm sure my colleagues who work for the LEA may disagree with that.
Have you run that by Mr. Cooper yet?
I'm sorry?
Have you run that by Mr. Cooper yet?
Not that specifically, no. But I think the inequity of the situation is fairly straightforward, and I think it's in everybody's best interest to try and find a solution here that works. And I believe that the LEA is willing to work with us on that. I believe that it will be easier perhaps to extend the instructional time. But if you look at that time, the first buzzer goes at 7:30, the next buzzer goes at 7:37, which means you're late for class. By and large, students are in class by 7:35. That means a 10-minute homeroom, which quite conceivably could become a shorter time, and likewise, lunch could be changed. As well.
8th grade lunch is 45 minutes?
I'm sorry?
Just according to this, 8th grade lunch is 45 minutes.
8th grade.
Oh, no, sorry. That's clear. It's, never mind.
Okay.
I was reading across. It's uneven.
The other thing is the start and end time. If teachers had a 7¼ hour day and right now, it just says it's a half hour longer than the student's day. And some teachers, as long as your day is that amount, 7¼ hours, it doesn't really matter if you come in more of that time before school or after school, they have that flexibility. The old contract used to stipulate the start time and end time of that 7:15, so we could go back to that, or simply, look at if the teachers started their day at 7:20, they should be no problem getting people in their homerooms by 7:30. 7.25 hour day then takes you to 2:35, which would be 30 minutes after the day. So finding some time during the school day is possible, finding some time at the end of the school day is possible, finding it within the school day has no impact on busing. Finding a few minutes after the school day may have a small impact. But as is pointed out, given that so few students at the high school, which is done after LMS, actually take the bus home, it might not be that big a impact. So I think there's opportunity. One of the questions becomes, given these standards have been in effect since 2011, and we don't have the additional days built into the calendar for LMS, is this something we want to achieve for the 14-15 year, which would extend into the 15-16 year? We just want to address it moving forward in the new calendar. And that's obviously, a discussion that would interest the board, but also the LEA, so.
I think it's something we start next year. I can't imagine trying to change something this year. I guess that's my opinion anyway.
Given that it's a subject of negotiations, it may be something we want to move into non-public.
I'd also be interested though too, so we're still getting the results back from the bus company on how we could possibly save money and save buses. If that affects the start times, then that's something we'd want to bring into those discussions. So I'd say we almost wait till we get that information before we start.
Just wait until we get some feedback from the bus company relative.
Did they give us an estimate on when they'd have it?
Also, looking at this though, Derek, I don't really see where you need to affect the start time. I think there's enough play in there. Like Dr. Cochran said, just between like homeroom alone,
Yeah.
you end that 5 minutes earlier. I mean, that in itself is 25 minutes a week.
Yeah.
If it would take like 5 minutes off of lunch, you're talking 10 minutes a day.
7 minutes a day times,
What's that?
And it's really only from 7th to 8th grade.
Right.
7 minutes a day across a whole year would be 21 additional hours, divided by the 6 hours would
So you
be
really only
3.5 days.
change in 7th
Should be up to
and
5
8th
extra days.
I mean, did they need a half-hour lunch too?
That's only a
You could take
period,
7
a
minutes off
minute
lunch.
period.
You know that, Dr. Crocker, you're only gonna make the change
Just 7 and 8.
for homeroom and lunch for 7th and 8th grade.
Right.
That's the other piece that needs to be worked out, because at grades 5 and 6, the day should not exceed 5.75 hours. So we'll have to find a way to schedule this in such a way that we don't increase the instructional time for our 5th and 6th graders.
Yeah, just 7th and 8th.
But I think it's doable. The problem is unified arts stretch across all 7 periods. That was the challenge, and will be the challenge.
Well, oh, I see what you're saying. We don't know where unified arts,
The unified arts are in all 7 periods.
yeah. Well,
But
I mean, is this just an accounting error? Can homeroom count as instructional time?
advisory does.
we're not changing it to advisory.
So the high school has a 10-minute advisory.
No, they don't. They have a 10-minute homeroom.
No, it says in the schedule advisory. I
Just
checked the
because it's
spelling.
written that way doesn't mean that's what it is. What are you gonna advise them?
They have a
10 minutes?
22-minute advisory on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. I suspect that's.
More information on Wednesdays?
The criteria for advisory is that it has to have a substantial program to it, as opposed to other things.
Is there any program you can do in
It's
15
difficult to
minutes?
have a substantial program in a 10-minute. However, given that the maximum day, as dictated by the state, is 360 minutes for 6 hours, you'll note that the advisory period is not included in these calculations as performed by me, because that would put us in violation by being over the state law, or state regulations.
So it's a very small window we have to work with, is what you're saying. So 5-minute homeroom, 10-minute advisory.
I did count the 22-minute advisory, but not the 10-minute advisories. So at this point in time, I don't think this has helped the conversation about blizzard bags a whole lot, but
Well, I think we have to make a decision this year on it, blizzard bags. I think going forward, it's clear we want to do something else, but this year we still need to make a decision, I think. I mean, I don't like blizzard bags, but I also don't like going to school June 25th, so.
It's tough to be in 7th and 8th grade this year.
Or we could- that's one way to place pressure.
I
think this
strongly hope that we get a light winter.
So, well, the issue becomes this year, because if we want to use blizzard bags, then you have to vote to do it, and then if the vote is in the affirmative, then we then have to enter into a sidebar. And I suspect the LEA will be open to, what we've done in the past, first 2 days not a blizzard bag, or one blizzard bag. That would get us through this year, without having to extend the day very far. And this year, at least, we have 1.6 days at LMS that we could just say we've already done. The other argument is this: if we just use the hours that we've already been teaching anyway, blizzard bags are better than that, because at least 80% of the students are doing something. And I'm not gonna make a stronger statement than that.
Is it conceivable we could do blizzard bags just for 7th and 8th grade? That's what Mary just said. I'm just saying it louder.
He's plagiarizing you.
I said it was mean, too.
I think that would be an interesting conversation to have with the LEA.
It would be an interesting conversation to have with the
The
Department of
parents.
Education first.
Or whether or not it needs to have to be the entire district at the percentage, or is it
Well,
just?
I remember
class?
when Dr. Cutler brought it to us, and she pretty much said it was a district-wide thing that needed support, but I don't remember her actually giving us a document that said that, but she was pretty adamant that that's how it had to be, so that was the way the board went, but the board's vote was that it had to be approved every year. Because the board was never
Right.
been solidly behind the blizzard bag phenomena.
Now, if we get a warrant article passed, that we have a new student information system that allows teachers just to move their classes online, we might think
That would be
differently.
outstanding.
Yes, it would.
That would be outstanding.
That would be.
Except for the kids that
May
are
have
online
a-
access.
Well, we could have that discussion a little later on tonight.
No. I'm not sure exactly how it's gonna go about, but I'm gonna make a motion to utilize blizzard bags for 2014-15 school year. I'm not really certain how those are gonna be used or when, but I think having that at our disposal, and I'm gonna make that motion.
You do have a tabled motion from Mrs. Lepori from 2 weeks ago.
Oh, it's still there?
Yes,
Still sitting there on the table?
yes.
So you just have to make
And
a
it wa-
motion to remove it from the table.
Right, it was to vote to continue blizzard bags and discussion for the superintendent to have a discussion with the LEA about the sidebar. So, it's up to you, and it was
Is that what the
seconded.
motion was? To have-
I'm sorry?
To have a discussion with the
The
LEA?
superintendent to have a discussion.
Has that occurred?
No, these conversations kind of took control of the agenda.
Come back, bring it back out of a sidebar, out of a, because all
Well, I think the
things-
motion was to instruct the superintendent to begin, to initiate sidebar conversations with the LA. I think.
So do we wanna remove yours?
You can ask her what she said.
Given that we're talking about the interpretation and potential negotiation, I would suggest we bring it up in non-public.
Well, first, we have, before we discuss anything, to give you direction, we have to vote on whether or not blizzard bags are going to be accepted or not. Because if they're not going to be accepted, then we don't need to have a
Correct.
discussion.
Well, we may or may not, depending on what the other options are.
Well, I would, again, strongly encourage the board members to end blizzard bags and allow us, if we have to tough it out, we toughed it out last year. But I strongly believe we need to send the message that there are things that need to be corrected. And if we continue just Band-Aiding things, and I believe that continuing blizzard bags is just that process, that, we're not sending the message that we want. We want some change that allows us to better control the whole education process. And I think continuing blizzard bags just puts off that tough conversation for another year. And I think that the LEA needs to understand that the board wants the changes, and that we would hope that they would be cooperative in those changes, because I believe it's what is in the best interest of our students, and that it will be a very easy process. And if those negotiations occur quickly, the board can always reevaluate blizzard bags in January. But I believe any decision to open blizzard bags before we've had a conversation about the recommended changes that we're looking at taking removes all advantages that the board has.
So you're
in any
looking to,
conversation.
you're looking to make changes to the schedule this year then?
I'm not looking to make any changes. I'm just saying table blizzard bags. We can always bring it back up in January or February, and I can imagine that
Well, but
our
then it's too
talented
late, though.
staff could very easily put together 1 or 2 blizzard bags if we need, and decide, if we got drenched, we could very easily add them, and they could say, no, they're not gonna do it, and that's fine. I guess that's the roll of the dice. But I believe if we're going to be negotiating some changes in our schedules, that we need to be able to be doing that from a position where the board wants those changes, and that,
John, I don't have a problem in tabling it for a short period of time, but I don't think going to January, February, like what Derek was just saying, I think that's a little late, but I mean, I don't have a problem tabling at this moment.
I think we gotta pick for this year. I think it's clear, I agree with everything you said, but I think it's clear for moving forward, we want a different solution, but looking at this year, I don't think blizzard bags are good. I don't think adding 2 minutes per class is gonna do anything substantial education. I don't
But
think
we
going
don't,
to school.
the thing is there, we don't need to add 2 minutes. I mean, if you look at the chart, I mean.
Oh, I know, but-
It's only 7th and 8th grade that's a concern.
Oh, I know, I'm saying for this year though, I don't think, in order to make up days this year, for
Well, I
7th and
think
8th
that-
grader, they'd
I
have to
think what
extend
we
the day.
I think if we
No.
continued to allow blizzard bags to just sit without any approval on those, and now our instruction is to go find out where the LEA sits on the recommended, what is their solution to this? We've had our discussions in a very public manner of where we are. Reluctantly, with a very split decision, I believe, you'll get 3 votes maybe and 2 votes no on blizzard bags. Because I think that's where the board sits right now.
Dr. Cochran, do you think this year we can make a change to the 7th and 8th grade schedule that would give them enough hours at the end of the year? Providing all the stars align and the LEA agrees.
It's conceivable.
Okay.
And I believe that should be our first option.
So do I, actually.
Yep,
I
I
mean, I
agree.
think if we don't, I just think we'll be sitting here a year from now, too.
Yep.
But I also think we should make the decision as far as
easy, but-
blizzard bags in a very short period of time. Like I said, I'm not waiting until like January, February. So hopefully we can get together and,
Now, preparation of blizzard bags should not be done during regular school time, because of course the preparation of those lessons is part of the teacher's responsibility in it. So it's not like we should be giving them school time to do it. That would be, so that's a non-issue. But if we look at our board agenda, I think we need to know, we've got a meeting the 19th, and then in December,
December 3rd,
every week.
December 3rd and 17th?
10th, and 17th.
I think preferably the 3rd, but the 17th is the absolute latest.
I'd agree.
What was that?
I say.
The 3rd or the 17th would be the latest.
Oh, I'd say we go to the 17th. Push it out. Oh, well, if we get it solved beforehand, then by all means, bring it back. But I think we move it to the 17th as the next time the board,
Well, no,
hopefully by that time,
I'd say 17th's the deadline. It doesn't mean we can't bring it up.
Well, that's right, there's
beforehand.
there's absolutely no reason. I mean, as chair, you can bring anything to the table.
So is it the will of the board that we open some dialogue with the LEA to see what other solutions they may be amenable to?
Yeah, I think that was already
I would agree with that.
suggested. Yeah.
So we have a motion on the table, though.
Yeah.
Did we make the motion to,
I don't think it got second, did it?
did we ever make the motion to untable it?
Janine's.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
Mine's sitting there. I'll withdraw mine at this time. And I'll just bring it back.
Another week.
Michelle's so sick of cutting those guys.
So right now we don't.
I am, I'm gonna start cutting and
She
pasting, I'm
keeps trying to
tired.
say recommended action.
It's okay, yeah, I understand, it's fine.
All right. Questions on the manifest?
Garrett, you want to see it?
Are they all signed?
Excellent. All right. Community forum?
You're crashing us, man.
And we still haven't found CHS out there, right? For their
No.
play? All right. So we'll go into non-public RSA 91-A semicolon 311. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him, unless the employee affected, one, has a right to a meeting, and two, request that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such a person requests an open meeting.
I did
So
fine.
made.
No, it just,
Yep.